Hey y'all, it's Megan, and today I'm sewing a Florence crop top. If you want to see other versions, then they are linked down below. You're going to need to cut your shelf bra pieces in both the back and the front piece, and then also your main bodice pieces. Make sure you're using the cutout bodice for your crop top in the front and back. Then cut your shelf bra elastic, your shelf bra band, and then the crop bow piece. You're going to want to make sure to mark the markings on your pattern piece, on the bow, on the bottom of your bodice pieces, and then since I'm doing a strap, also on the top for the strap markings. The first step is going to be to sew these shoulder seams. So put your main pieces right sides together, sew the shoulder seam, and then put your lining pieces right side together and sew the shoulder seams with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Just make sure that your shelf bra is mirror image to your main pieces so they go together correctly. Next, if you're doing the strap, you're going to fold it in half with right sides together, and you're just going to stitch it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you'll flip the strap right sides out just with a safety pin or a tube turner. And then I like to move the seam towards the center back so you're not going to be seeing it while wearing it. You can also slip clear elastic just the same length as your strap inside your strap, so it gives it a little more support by doing this. Or if you're using a fabric that doesn't have very good recovery, then this will help the strap from stretching out. Now you're going to lay your main bodice out flap and find that marking on your bodice piece. And with the right side of the strap to the right side of the bodice, you're just going to baste your strap in place. If you're doing 2 straps, then of course you would baste both of them. I like to just split the 2 straps on either side of the marking, but really you can put them wherever you would like. Then you need to baste it on the other side, so the back side as well. So just lay that back side out flat, and then again with the right side of the strap to the right side of the bodice, you will baste that strap in place. You can also quickly baste your side seams together after you get your strap basted, so you can try your bodice on to see if your strap needs adjusted in any way. Next, you're going to lay your main bodice out flat, and then you're going to align your shelf bra pieces with the right sides together, aligning those raw edges and the shoulder seam on top of the main piece. So you can see the strap is going to be sandwiched between here, and we're going to stitch these together all around the neckline. So you kind of just have to move your strap to the side seam, as you can see here, to move it out of the way while you're stitching. You're going to stitch the shelf bra to the main piece with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you can use your serger for this step, but I really prefer to use my sewing machine because we are going to be adding clear elastic to this seam. You really don't want to skip the clear elastic here because it's what's going to hold that in place over your chest while wearing. So again, I use my sewing machine to sew, and then I will go back and add the clear elastic inside of the seam. This is so the elastic doesn't push the lining towards the wrong side and it kind of rolls, which I don't really like. Even if you top stitch it, you're still going to get some rolling if you use your serger. I'm going to go back and add my clear elastic. Make sure you exercise it by just pulling it a little bit. And when you add your elastic, I don't like to add it to the seam, so I'm starting about a 1/2 inch in. And then you don't want to pull your elastic too tight because it will gather your fabric, and you don't want it too loose. You just want it with a little bit of tension just taut as you're stitching it on. The next step is to burrito roll the arm side. So you are going to open the main piece and the lining piece, just like this. And you're gonna stick that strap right between on that neckline seam so it's not in the way. And then you're going to pull the shelf bra over the strap and align it to the raw edges with the right sides together of the main piece. So the strap should be between the pieces, just like that. Then you will again sew this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and add clear elastic to this seam. Then you're going to flip it right side out by just pulling the bodice through the shoulder strap. And it's time to sew the side seam. So you're going to open your front bodice. So the front main and lining are flat, and then you're going to lay the back bodice lining and main on top, aligning that seam, and then you're going to sew them together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Next, it's time to finish the shelf bra. So you're going to overlap your elastic edges by 1/2 inch, and then you will just stitch with a zigzag stitch back and forth a few times to hold it in place. Then you want to stitch the ends of your shelf bra band together. So you just fold it in half and stitch the short ends with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then place the elastic over the band, fold the band in half over the elastic enclosing it. And the elastic should be the same length as the band, so it should just fit inside without stretching. Next, we're going to find the quarter points of both your shelf bra band and the edge of your shelf bra. Now you're going to match the right side of your band to the wrong side of your shelf bra. So it should be inside the shelf bra on the wrong side, and you will stitch them together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you can press that and top stitch if you want. Now you're going to find your markings on the bottom edge of your bodice, and we are going to hem this edge that isn't going to have the bow attached with some clear elastic. So just exercise your clear elastic, and then you're going to attach the elastic on the wrong side of the bodice. Make sure you have snipped that marking at a scant 1/2 inch so this part is easy to hem. I just use my serger to attach the elastic. Again, you don't want to overly stretch your elastic here or you're going to gather the bottom, but you do want that elastic to be taut. After you have that elastic attached to the wrong side, you're going to press it 1/2 inch up, and then we will edge stitch this in place. Once you have edge stitched that elastic and it's all hemmed, then you can set the bodice aside. Next, we're going to work on the bow band. So again, make sure that you marked those scant 1/2 inch markings on your pattern piece. You can see mine with the red clips, that's where they are. And you're going to fold that band in half with the right sides together, aligning those markings and all the raw edges. and you're going to stitch the bow band together from the short end all the way to the marking, again with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you have those stitched together, you will turn it right side out and press it with your iron, and it's time to attach that band to the crop top. So just fold the band in half to find the center between your two markings, and you're going to lay that crop flat so the marking and the unsewn edges are going to align with the right sides together. Mark the center of the band to the side seam and then pin those raw edges together. This should be exactly the same length here. And then we're going to stitch them together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I really prefer to use my sewing machine on this step because you get a cleaner finish. If you use the serger, then you'll want to go back and at least stitch the edges with your sewing machine so you get a really clean finish from the hemmed portion to the part where the band is sewn on to the crop bodice. Once you have sewn them together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, you're going to press that seam allowance up towards the bodice and you're going to top stitch it in place. What I like to do is just start exactly where we hemmed the elastic edge on the crop and then continue and edge stitch that band right in place so it all looks seamless once it's done. And once you have this stitched, your crop top is complete. So how you wear this is it's opened a little bit on the side, and you can tie your bow either in a knot or in a bow around your waist, and it is super cute. If you have any questions about any of the steps, you can leave them down below and I will try to answer. If you make one of the Florence tops, we would absolutely love to see posted on our Facebook group or on Instagram at Made for Mermaids.